Alright, we are recording. Continuing going medieval. Queues provided by Tinsley PR, and okay, did finally hook in. I had to use the window hook to get it up initially, but it did hook in shortly after. Okay, so what do I got to talk about? I guess mention that first because it's time sensitive. GOG has started its spring sale, so Steam finished theirs. Now GOG has started theirs, and the GOG one is going until April 2nd. What'd they say, 7,500 titles on sale? They've also added 26 games to their preservation program. Crap, I probably should have actually... Well, yeah, I can find it this way. Silent Hill 4 and Fear Platinum are both in it. Those were the two that they featured when talking about it. They had a list of others. 3 Tomb Raider games. Ultimate Games, Wing Commander 1 and 2, Deus Ex Game of the Year, Fallout 2, others I'm not sure how, well, Ultima 1, 2, 3, Ultima 4, 5, 6, and then Ultima 8 Gold Edition. And these are all also on sale by some amount, in some cases by a lot, as part of the spring sale, so yeah, pretty neat if you're interested in any of those. Okay, that's fine. Okay, turn that up. I'll just try not to turn on construction. Turn on anything for construction. Okay. Okay, so that should be fine. Let me also just check. Are any of these things paused? Okay, these are paused. Let's correct that. What about these? No, these are not paused. Okay. I mean, it's just technically, it's best if you have them doing indoor stuff during the winter. Some of them are still wearing summer clothes because that's all they got. Although, no, that's over. Apparel. Okay, we do have some winter clothes ready. Let's see if I can get them to wear them. I forgot this is actually the easiest way. Oh wait, no, not that one, please. Yeah. Okay, so I have 8 in there, so let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that will leave none then, since apparently they were already wearing it. Hopefully they will actually go and put it on. Alright, there, need to move that. Let me see, what else have I got for news? One thing that I saw that is interesting, and well, it's interesting, but it makes sense that AMD would be doing this, is at least supposedly, they've said that they sold 200,000 RX 9070 series GPUs, or maybe just the RX 9070. Not sure. Not really certain on that one, but it still is. It makes absolute sense that they would say that because of how there had already been rumors from some retailers that, yeah, we've already sold more of the AMD GPUs than we even provided by NVIDIA, that's how extreme that is. There we go. Hopefully somebody will take care of these animals now. Well, take care of the lighting, I should say. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if any similar numbers have been shared from NVIDIA, but it still is. It's part of the narrative. AMD should try to talk about that. Because NVIDIA's in such a situation, I would say that if they've sold less, they can't admit it. If they've sold more and they say it, you'd probably still have people saying, yeah, we don't believe you. Because if that were true, then why can't I find anything? Or why is it all so many hundreds of dollars marked up by scalpers, which means that there is such high demand and high demand relative to supply. So yeah. One thing that was neat to see, though hard to say exactly what may come of this. Seriously, who is that? Steward is a higher thing, and he's not doing it because this needs to be filled. Thank you. For somebody I'm sorry, it just... They need a proper chores system in this. I mean, this whole thing. Rip it out, rebuild it. It is... Anyhow. And because I've said it in regards to Titan Quest 2, and how I don't like some of the changes that they've already shown they will be making there. Early access is a time period where you can abuse the player, and I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean it as you can decide, you know what, we are going to completely gut something here. We're going to completely change it, and we're just going to force it on you. Maybe for only a month, for a limited time. We're just going to force it on you so we get reactions, and then we'll go back to what it was, and we'll evaluate what we want to do going forward. There is nothing wrong. You know, I just had a funny thought. I am legitimately curious. I'm gonna look this up. Yeah. Can I... I want to see stats, but I don't remember how to do that for just one game. It's been too long since we've gone through this stuff. But I am curious as to where this is. Like, how many players are we talking about? Charts. Okay. Yeah. Peak of about 14,500 players almost 4 years ago, so when the game came out. Peak in the last 24 hours was only 960. What's it been for the year? About 2,000 at peak. Okay. Sadly, that's not too surprising to me. I mean, it's a game that you would expect it to trend a little lower, but just that I don't think this style of game, this genre of game, is necessarily going to get a whole lot of attention, but it does make sense that you would have people that would just regularly play it, that it can scratch a specific itch. Sort of like how Civilization type games, not just the one more turn phenomenon, but that there are for some people that's the exact game they want to play all the time, and so they can pour hundreds to thousands of hours into it. But it is still as I said, I think that this is a game, because it is still in early access, that go ahead and whip this out, because this is so bad for what it is you want to actually do here, and also just the larger skills system as well. So, I mean, look at this. The UI is overlapping. That's how badly made this is. Here we go. But I mean, look at all this list here and all the. I mean, it is so nonsensical. And it's like, okay, melee. What does melee connect to here? Does it connect to anything? Should it connect to anything? Carpentry. Okay, we have that here, but what about crafting? Would it also impact this? Maybe. I mean, because isn't crafting and carpentry, I was trying to combine those two words. They are clearly related. So should smithing be with crafting. I mean, it's just... Yeah. It's just annoying. Just annoying. Hopefully Titan Quest 2 will be out soon. I can go to that. And yes, I know a few weeks ago, was it? I had mentioned how you could sign up to get into a early playtest. I did not do that. I didn't feel like signing up for that. And that's really all it is. I just didn't feel like doing that. At some point, it's like when it's available in early access, I've said before, I intend to purchase it then. And I will probably be giving, I'll see about being active in the forums or something, providing feedback on that, because I got some. And from what I've seen, when I did that video where I was providing my commentary to a developer playthrough of parts of it, just seeing it, and it's like so much of it was, to me, this looks like a Diablo sequel or a Path of Exile sequel. It's like, but this is Titan Quest 2. Why am I not seeing Titan Quest here? I'm seeing Diablo. I'm seeing Path of Exile. Show me Titan Quest. And that's I'd probably be on there making forum posts about that, if that is how it ends up being. If that is how it ends up feeling, doing that. I can believe some people just being like, "Oh no, here's the Titan Quest guy again." Like, here's the I want to play Titan Quest. I want to play Titan Quest 2, not Diablo 5 or whatever. Guy again. It's like, yeah. All right. These shelves have not been filled. I'm not even gonna bother with that actually. But what are you upset about? You got clothing, appropriate clothing for it, so... Oh, I see. You're just upset because you have to be outside. Yeah, I'm saying, look at this. Look at this. Edita. Edita? I'm not sure. Anyway. So, okay, fine. You filled that one up. Let's look at this one, though. This is at 0. This is Lucy. I mean, why can't it be... Oh, see here. You do have 2. Well, maybe. Same person. There's one. Okay. I know I've seen it where I've gotten the same name multiple times. So it's like, you can in fact have one person scheduled to do multiple. But it's like, now we're going to have multiple people do... This is why you need a chores system. You legitimately do. Where you say, no, this is the person that does all of it, and they do it all together. You group the action together. So that way it's a... Yes. Let's just say it's this one, Edita, that needs to do the... that needs to always make sure that these are filled. Then that is a single... From her perspective, that is a single action, and she should bring all the materials she needs for it. Let's just assume that she can carry that much fuel for them. Which, to be reasonable, is probably not the case. But let's just say you can. Or, let's even have it where you can have a firebox. And holy crap, that needs to be a thing in this game. That would be so appropriate to have a firebox. Fuel box. Crap, why can't I think what those things are actually called? But it's, basically how you see in various television shows and movies, you'll see, like, alongside of the house, a bunch of, already split up wood stacked there. Well, you can also have that in a box, so you keep, like, rain and snow off of it. But because of all of those, we have so many of the braziers here and here, it would actually make sense to have a box where it's like, okay, Alfred here has gone off and chopped a lot of wood. He's going to, when it gets brought back, some will be put into these boxes, some will go down here for general use, general storage. But then, when Edita, like, if you have a firebox here, technically that's not right, because the firebox is also, like, in a kiln. Could also be in, like, how you... Okay. So, you see how the bellows is placed right there? that suggests that the fire is built up underneath. That, I think, is actually the firebox. I keep saying firebox for the fuel, for what would hold the fuel. I probably have the term wrong, but it still is. You would, in fact, have the fire likely built underneath, with vents allowing air in, the bellows so you can force air in. This should also actually, but this seems a lot more crude here. Which is actually another thing that is kind of making me laugh a little bit, is that this is actually kind of crude. And you can definitely make better things than this. What is that? Huh. I don't think I'm going to bother with dung brick. I don't even know what I'd use that for. Yeah, this is actually a poor design when you think about it, because these kilns can reasonably be shaped like like a furnace here, where it would be vertical like that, so that the air definitely flows up and pulls in and through. Natural draft kilns are a thing, and this looks a lot more like it than this does, than these kilns do. Plus, there's also, when you think about how large this opening is here at the front, a kiln, sometimes you want to control the airflow in, especially for controlling moisture, potentially, unless you just get it very, very hot, which is also possible. But it's like, that opening might actually be a problem. Especially because it is going directly, this opening does not seem to necessarily be to the fire, but to the whole thing. So yeah. I will grant, I don't fully know what I'm talking about. I have no experience with building a kiln, but I have been doing some studying on that, some research on that for a story I'm writing. So it is, I'm not completely ignorant. I'm just mostly ignorant, I guess is the way to put it. Aside from it being a thatched roof here, I mean, in some ways this even looks better for a kiln than those. Well, looks more efficient of a kiln than these. These would still work as kilns, but they are not the most efficient design. That's more so what I'm trying to say. But anyway, yeah, it would make sense that you have boxes that would just hold the fuel here instead of it being off and away, and it being a box so that it does keep moisture off. This technically also does make sense that you would just have permanent campfires, but, you know, okay, it's a video game. Like, a reserved site for it. But, yeah, I'm saying you absolutely should have that. That is 100%... that would go back to, like, prehistoric times, even. The idea of having such a box. And this is Middle Ages. As prehistoric times would have it, ancient people would have it. This is the Middle Ages. They absolutely would have had it. I mean, even then, this does seem to me less technologically advanced than some of the stuff that I have seen you could have expected the ancient people to have. Like, you would have had more advanced kilns and furnaces, I think, than what we see here. Well, here, let me put it like this. This forge, it's not unreasonable that you would have a furnace looking a lot more like that. Now, true, this is because it's made out of limestone brick. This is just made out of clay. But still is, you could have a furnace made out of brick and have this do all that. A kiln, it makes sense, would be a different design than a furnace because you're technically working with different things. Like, you wouldn't necessarily try to make charcoal in a forge like this. Yeah, but, I mean, yeah. I'm getting pedantic. No, there's also... Wow, okay. We don't ever have a use for ash, do we? Because technically that could be used for things like soap, which I want to say would have existed at this time. The materials to make it certainly did. Ash, some fats from especially animals, and he would have had already like spices and stuff and such for adding an odor, a desirable fragrance. I think the ash in there is partially to control the... Oh yeah, and also a lye. But I think the ash is partially to control the pH in the soap, but it also may serve as an aggregate to help exfoliate and such, or just otherwise remove the dirt from your skin. I guess one way to put it is this seems less and less like a simulator, more just somebody's concept of a colony simulator. It's also a little odd to me. Well, I'm just thinking, is it reasonable that you would have at this armorer's table its own small forge? I guess not really, because you would be doing some stuff there that would need it. I guess one thing, it kind of is suggested here that you might have that container there to douse the hot metal in, so for tempering, either in water or oil. I'm not sure how much they would have been... Well, no, they probably would have. They probably would have done a lot of stuff working with oil tempering. I was like, why not? Why wouldn't they experiment with it? Okay, you say you're becoming annoyed. You know what? Boom. Actually, hang on. I'll wait until it's the day. But I will do that. I will do that to make them happy. So yeah, I still got two things on my notes to talk about. One is, I think I'd start talking about this. PCIe 7's final draft has been released. Chances are I will not be changing that. This will trigger members of PCI SIG, the governing body, the standards body for PCIe. It will trigger them to start reviewing patents, or at least figure out what are the essential patents for PCIe 7. But that's occurred now, so it's version 0.9 of the spec. So yeah, that's really neat and all. What was it? 128 giga transfers per second. I don't remember if that would be per pin or not. But it's still, they're continuing with the whole doubling the transfer speed with every 3 years, so it will be twice as fast as PCIe 6, which is twice as fast as 5, twice as fast as 4, and so when will we ever see this? Maybe a decade from now. I mean, no, it shouldn't be a full decade. But it is all these specifications. They come first to commercial products, so data centers, servers, things like that. Eventually, it will work its way down to consumer products. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure how important that'll be by this point. By the time you get to PCIe 7, I find it doubtful. Well, certainly no GPU will need that. And I find it doubtful any user would be able to notice the impact on storage. I mean, I could believe it if they finally decided, okay, we're gonna make NVMe drives that are more than just 4 terabytes. Because I mean, it makes sense if you would have like 30 terabytes of data, I guess. Some large amount on a single device that now you need that much bandwidth. But it's like, oh, hey, we have enough bandwidth that we can, write to this drive in 3 seconds. It's like, yeah, but that's neat and all, but no one ever needs that. It's like, I mean, if it's 4 terabyte drive and you could potentially write to the entire thing, and we're ignoring the speed of the flash memory, it's like, okay, that's nice and all, but no one needs to write that fast. Not a consumer, anyway. Instead, what would be really neat, but no motherboard manufacturer seems interested in doing this, which is such a shame, is to just be like, we've got all these really, really fast PCIe lanes. Why don't we start muxing them? Because, I mean, for storage, and even GPUs, you probably don't need more than PCIe 4. For storage, I can believe PCIe 3. So why not just mux it down? Because you've got that doubling. So one PCIe 7 lane would be 2 PCIe 6, which is 4 PCIe 5, which is 8 PCIe 4. I mean, 8 PCIe 4 is probably enough for the majority of people playing the majority of games on the majority of GPUs. That's one PCIe 7 lane. Imagine a CPU that just had 16 of those. I mean, that's already 8 full by 16 slots that you could do at PCIe 4 that way. That's a lot of bandwidth. But it seems that no one is interested in trying to actually apply it that way, which is such a waste. I'm hoping that's just that they're like sleeping or something. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that all consumer SSDs seem capped at 4 terabyte. Their 8 terabyte do exist, but they're ridiculously expensive. And I get some of it is very expensive. But it's, well, here. NVMe, okay, I can understand. The M.2 slot is kind of tiny. But there's U.2 as well, which is, and there's actually a new one. I don't remember what the name of it is. Slim SAS, is that it? That could also allow for PCIe lanes over a wire, over a cable. But you can get like a 2.5-inch U.2 drive. So imagine, I was like, you can fit 4 terabyte on a 110 millimeter long M.2. Okay, you could probably fit two, three, maybe 4 of those. Let's go with 2 or 3 in a 2.5-inch enclosure, right? So that's already getting you to potentially 12 terabyte in this format that has existed for many, many, many years. Traditionally, it's connected via SATA. But imagine connecting that to U.2. Now, one issue can be heat, but it's like, if you, let's say it's just 2, you use slower drives there, but you have them set up in a RAID. So that then you can, if they are on their own slower flash chips, but with the RAID they're doubled, now the bandwidth is doubled. Yes, you would also need to do things to protect the data. Because if one internal drive fails, so is the other. But also, to be fair, all SSDs, that's how they already work. They have multiple flash chips on there, and they are rated together. So at least I'm pretty sure that's how it is. That's part of how you get the greater speed across them. But anyhow, you could do that. And then just connect it via, as I said, I think it's Slim SAS, I could be wrong with that, but U.2 or NVMe. Or, sorry, M.2. U.2 also gives NVMe. But you could do that. You could have like an M.2 to U.2 adapter, and now you can get, now you could potentially have a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch. 3.5-inch, you are easily putting in a ton of flash storage in that. But no one does this for some reason. I don't get why. Because, I mean, that's where now that high speed will actually be useful. I just realized, is anyone actually working here? Nope. Didn't I turn research up? Alright. So I have that stuff up. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that PCI SIG is doing this work, don't get me wrong. Because they languished on, well, we languished. They sat on PCIe 3 for far too long. That was the standard for too many years. So now they've tried to go to a 3-year cycle is good, because it means that we're getting constant efforts to improve it. That is good. But seriously, there's more that they can do. Well, there's more that can be done if they were to start saying, hey, motherboard manufacturers, why don't you start doing this? Or even start designing some things there for doing that. I actually don't know who does the M.2 standard. If that does have a standards body. Do not know. I can believe that NVMe is part of the PCIe SIG standard. It's part of their work. I could believe that. I think you get as much sleep as other people. So good. Go take care of that. Sorry. Last thing I have to talk about might be a sign of the coming technological apocalypse. GIMP 3 has been released. So all we need is Half-Life 3, and then we know, yeah, the apocalypse might be coming. Like, expect Darksiders to start coming true. GIMP is an open source Photoshop alternative. I like it. I've been using it for years. I'm happy with it. It is different from Photoshop, but it offers a lot, and it's not that hard to get used to. At least it wasn't for me. And there's way more advanced stuff you can do with it than what I do with it. But anyway, it has been stuck on GIMP 2 point whatever for a long time now, because it was built using the GTK system. And don't ask me to explain all that. I probably can't. It's got something to do with how the windows are made and such, but they had to do a lot of custom coding for it in GTK 2. Okay? A lot of it hand done instead of already existing libraries and such. Well, GTK 3 was released. And going from 2 to 3 was not trivial for anyone, is my understanding, but definitely not for GIMP because of all that handwritten code that they had to do. So that's why it's taken, I think I saw 7 years for them to finally reach it. So yeah, they started working on the transition 7 years ago. They only finished it this past week. Now, partly it's open source, so it's mainly volunteer developers. It's not like I don't know if they actually do it. Some open source projects do actually have developers that they pay. I don't know if I care about Tapestry, to be honest. Yeah, so it's like some do that. I don't know if that's the case with GIMP, but that's also been slowing. But it was a lot of work that they would have to do anyway. Yeah, I haven't installed it on the desktop. I haven't messed around with it yet. Beyond like trying to set it back to certain things I prefer, like just the theme and icons that I prefer, which are I prefer a lighter theme, and also the legacy icons. No idea how I'll take those. I like having saplings about, okay? Especially when it's like, you don't have any. It's like, how do I not have any? Look at all that hay. That makes me actually pretty happy. To know I've got so much. There's a lot I could sell. But it looks like that's gonna be it. Okay. One thing that they did say that it has is kind of neat is non-destructive filters. So filters would be, how you can change various things, but them being non-destructive, what that means is, okay, I don't know if this is an example of one of the filters that's non-destructive, but let's say one that adjusts the levels, or even adjusting color saturation. So you want to make an image black and white, for example. Color image, make black and white, so you just drop the color saturation to 0. Now, traditionally, doing that changes the image itself. So that the saturation information is gone. You have now lost the ability to bring it back. You'd have to undo all that work. Non-destructive means instead of having it actually removed, instead of having the filter applied, it would be that instead in the preview window, it's just being applied. So the preview is having a filter applied to it, not the underlying image. When you export the image, yes, it would then apply the filter, I would assume. But while just still in the editor, it wouldn't. It would just know to apply it. It would be like how in some drivers and other things, you can have like a sharpening filter applied on top of your game video. Technically it is destructive because you're not seeing it, but the underlying image isn't actually altered. It's just what you're being shown is where the filter is being applied. So in theory, you could have it where you're playing a game and there's a sharpening filter applied that you see, but you might be able to like have OBS. I don't know if this would actually work, but you might have OBS hooked in to record the base video such that the filter is not applied. And I can actually see that being useful for some situations. Like, this wouldn't happen because my dad doesn't play video games, but he's colorblind. I've talked about this before. So imagine if there were a filter that would enhance the colors, so it would help him see stuff. And such filters do exist. Not many games use them or apply anything close to that. Some do, but very, very few. So imagine if he were to apply that, so that now it's for him to see. But if he were also streaming or something, which he would never do, have the video recorded without that filter applied. So it's just, so like the recording is done before that filter. That would be kind of a non-destructive use because you're not altering the underlying video. That's what's being recorded and then can be shared so that people can see it without the adaptation that he needs. And actually, I could see that being a thing in GIMP that would also be useful if they put a filter like that in there. One for correcting for the 3 different kinds of color blindness, along with the strength. Because that's one thing when I say, man, I kind of need to... I don't know if I will be going back or when I would be going back to doing video game reviews, but that is one thing I would definitely be doing still, is applying the picking tomatoes standard. So explaining that, unfortunately, I can't do it so well here. But you see how you've got... So his colorblindness makes red and green sometimes hard to distinguish between. And this, as I recall, is the most common form of colorblindness. But the level of colorblindness varies from person to person. So you see how we've got the red leaves here? Well, imagine there's green next to it. So when he is looking at tomatoes and deciding if he is going to pick them or not, it can be difficult for him because the red may blend in enough with the green. He can't fully tell if they're ripe. He's pretty good at it. As I said, the level of colorblindness is different from person to person. But still I use this picking tomato standard to imply that you have to have it applied to everything. It can't just be the UI, which some places, that's all they do. Some games, it's all it does. It only touches the UI. It's like, yeah, that's not going to help you with picking the tomatoes that are in the scene. So it would be interesting. You could have those would be good non-destructive filters, because that way you could have the underlying image that you're trying to make to fit your normal vision, but you can turn those on and adjust the levels to see, okay, how would this work for people that are colorblind? Like, are the distinctions still being applied there? Is it still looking how I want it to look, things like that? Or even just going back to the black and white thing. You had with television, this is something that I do believe has been, a lot of cinematography has been lost because people don't care. And people think that, oh, I've got an iPhone, that means this camera is good enough to do film. It's like, no, it's not. You're an idiot. Like, there's a reason why there is professional cinematography equipment. It's like, there are single lenses that are more expensive than your entire phone that you think you can film a movie on. And guess what? Those lenses are worth that money. Not just because of how difficult it is to make them, but they are of such high quality. Okay, I mean, we should not be neglecting that. You could also have a hunting blind. That would be another thing that could be in here. Anyway, for back when you would still have black and white and color film, well, Yeah, it would be on film. You would have to pay attention to what the colors are and how they would appear in black and white. So that way you'd make sure there's a distinction. Think about Star Trek, classic Star Trek, with the red, the yellow or green, depending on what Kirk feels like wearing, what Shatner feels like wearing, and the blue. Those four colors, need to be distinct from each other, even on black and white. So they were probably picked specifically for that. You also have things like the Addams Family set. That show was only ever in black and white. But the set for that, the walls were actually pink. Because that is what showed up with the correct color in black and white. And that's something that people... it's not like they looked at a Rush in black and white. They would have for confirmation. But they had just had the experience enough to look at it and know this is the color that we want. Another example is the Frankenstein monster, like going back to classic Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. His face was green. They painted his face green because it looks very pale white on film then, on black and white film. And also, they did some neat things with it as well that you couldn't do today. Partly because of color film, but also I believe that there are a lot of cinematographers that don't even realize that it's a thing. The Spencer Tracy, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of the things that they did for that is they took advantage of the fact that they were on black and white film by painting his face for both Jekyll and Hyde. And he would just do face contortions during the transformation. Because what they would then do is change the color of light being shined on him. So they would have him under green light initially for when he's Dr. Jekyll. So he's good Dr. Jekyll. So they would have green in certain spots that, as they then change the color to red, darken. So they would darken. Now you've got the dark bags under his eyes coming out to make him into hideous Hyde. And other things that, putting in lines and such on his cheeks potentially as well. I was like, and potentially you could even do that with somebody's hair with the right color dye. Just by changing that, because the film is only going to see the luminance, and you can control the luminance by changing how much light is reflecting off by that. It's incredibly intelligent and a great way to use the medium. But I doubt that most people ever think of that. Would ever think of that today. Partly because we're so used to just thinking with color, but also just, I believe that a lot of people, they don't understand those nuances. But also, that whole thing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that's technically non-destructive. Because, like, oh, we need to do another take. Oh, well, we need to redo his makeup. No, you go back to green light, start over. And you go back to red. That's non-destructive, because it's not changing what is underlyingly there. The only destruction, technically, is the fact that you have used the, used the film. But that, you're expecting that anyway, so, Okay. Yes, that's what I want, because I want the newer track. I just want it. I'm not saying I'm going to be using it anytime soon, but, it's nice having all this weird collection of knowledge. How long am I going? Oh, yeah, I can stop soon. Yeah. It really is a shame that some of that knowledge is just being forgotten. Okay. Yeah, I feel like just finishing off that point that, yeah, there is knowledge that seems to just be forgotten because people think it doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, especially in the arts, it's really bad for that to be lost because, like, no, it is part of the craft. And there are times when it's like, well, no, you do want to go back to black and white. Like, personally, I'm not even convinced you can do film noir in color. I'm not. Because I think you do need the contrast, the potentially very harsh contrast that black and white can give you. And not to suggest that this is film noir, but definitely has very strong contrast. Is Yojimbo. It's such a good movie, and very, very good looking, sharp movie. I wouldn't describe it as film noir. Maybe I could see somebody making an argument that I wouldn't be able to fight against, but I wouldn't necessarily put it in that category. It's like, you can't just say go to color with that and have it work. And it's also like a Godzilla -1, because they did do a minus color version of that where they pulled out the color. I was not convinced by that at all. I mean, I bought this nice Blu-ray version that includes that version, so I have it because I do want it, but it's not that good in my opinion. Too much it did look. To do that properly, you need to not just remove the color, but you would also need to be changing the levels so that you are adjusting that contrast. And there were some scenes in that, I remember when we saw it in the theater, the minus color version, there were some scenes in that way the contrast was what I would expect, with a heavy use of black in the image. Very much made me think of film noir. But then there were other scenes where absolutely not. It's like, okay, you need to keep to a style. And it didn't seem like they were quite doing that. And also, I'll say this, and I get why you don't do why you said, no, we're going to do black and white because that's what we should do. But there's also one thing that if I were there and could speak Japanese, I would have said to the dude, look, I get it. I want you to make this exception that I think is going to work well. And it would technically be later in the film than when it could first occur. But when you first see Godzilla doing the charge up for the heat breath, atomic breath, whatever you want to call it, because that's in the color version, it's glowing blue. I would say make that still blue, but it's supposed to be black and white. No. Godzilla should be so powerful here that he defies black and white. That this attack is that strong that he has forced the color back in. That's how powerful Godzilla should be. All right, have that jump out at the person, not just, oh my god, what's happening, but it is leaping off the screen to say, holy crap, Godzilla is powerful and is about to devastate you. And then you see the attack and it does devastate. It's like, that would have been so good. There's a part of me, I don't have a skill for doing this, that would like to actually take the two versions and do that and apply that and see how that looks, because I do think it would look fantastic. It would be tricky. It would be very tricky, but I think that it could be very, very well worth it. That it would be a very powerful thing. And that's not a statement against how they decided to do it. They just said, we're going to do black and white. We're going to keep it all black and white. That's fine. But it is still, as I said, my criticism about the whole, I felt that the styling of the black and white changed too much through the film. And also, it is a black and white, you typically would expect it to have a heavier grain, especially if you're trying to be reminiscent of the original Godzilla, which was a heavier grain. But they kept basically the same modern fine grain. It's like, nah, you need to bring it back in. Or even varied, where you have some scenes where there is noticeably more grain, because that's what you would expect there. So yeah, and that's all part of the craft. And I'm not saying this to be insulting. In some ways, I'm not even saying it to be critical of the Godzilla -1 crew. I'm not saying it at all there. I'm speaking generally. But that's the kind of craft thing that I believe that many people today, they don't understand. Many cinematographers or wannabe cinematographers don't understand. It is the value of the grain there, and that, yeah, sometimes you are in fact going to want to change it. And even be like, no, we're going to use this film because we want this specific grain for this specific scene. Yeah. And it's also one thing that I would add. There's a movie called The Fortune Cookie. And in it you have Jack Lemmon, who he plays a photographer. And at the part of it is he has a brother-in-law, I think it is, Walter Matthau, who's trying to convince him to play up an injury so he gets a big payoff. Big insurance payoff. Insurance investigators are trying to prove he's lying. And so they have set up across the street a camera that's constantly filming his apartment. And he knows this. Jack Lemmon knows this. And at the end, when he's finally done with the lie, he actually calls out across the street to the guy in the other apartment, use this lens at this f-stop. Because he just knows by standing there, knowing the distance, knowing the lighting in his apartment, he knows exactly what the configuration should be. And so the guy makes the change and is good, or was already on that. It's like, I want to make sure that you're capturing this well. So he can just say that. He doesn't need to hold the lens. He doesn't need to be in the room and check it. No, he just knows what it is. And I do feel that we're losing that, not just in that, but in other things as well. I got off on quite a tangent, didn't I? Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, so I guess see you next week. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to mention. Nothing really coming to mind. I do hope we get more Titan Quest 2 news. Especially, I mean, I know that playtest thing that I said didn't sign up for. And it's like, partly that was because I just didn't want to, I'm not sure how much that would have been allowed to be public. And I do want to record and share. Some, at least. I'd probably also try to play that on my own time, but yeah. Ooh, yeah, that's true. I could do 2 different characters. Nah, I'd probably go insane trying to do that. Well, more insane. Anyway, see you next time.